Bottom of Daf Kuf Amud Beis, we're holding where it says Amalei Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Rav Chia bar Avin. So we had a machlekes over here about the person that's on a boat on Shabbos. How do you take water from the sea onto the boat? One opinion said that really it's allowed because it's a makom p'tor. You measure the space from below the sea and above the sea, it's already higher than 10 tfachim, and therefore it's called a makom p'tor. You're allowed to carry from there into the boat. Elamai chachamim made a takana that you have to put out a rod to make some kind of a recognition to be allowed to do that. Another opinion was, which was Rav Chisda and Rabbi Bar Avhona, they said you have to build a four walls where that area of the sea is going to be inside those four walls, and then you can stick out some kind of a cup or whatever it is and draw the water within those walls in the sea. But just from the open space in the sea to bring the water out to the boat is not allowed. That was the Gemara we learned yesterday. So now the Gemara is going to address the second opinion that you could only draw water from inside these partitions that you placed in the sea. According to Rav Chisda and Rabbi Bar Avhona, the Omri, that they say, you have to create a space that has these four partitions. And only that way could you fill up the water from inside the sea and bring it onto the boat. How about in the opposite, when they have wastewater that they have to throw out into the sea? Where exactly do they throw this wastewater? What are they going to do? Are they going to throw it on the other side of the boat, so they're going to have to build other partitions? Is that what they have to do? Just like when you draw the water, you have to build partitions to bring it up. So when you throw down the water, wastewater, you have to build other partitions. It's a big tirche. Build partitions here, build partitions there. So where are they going to throw this water? Now if you're going to argue and say, you already built those partitions to draw water from there. So any wastewater, you throw into those partitions as well. But that's not a eitzah. Me'isile. It's disgusting. It's repugnant to have the same place used for throwing out the wastewater and also draw water for there if they want to use it for drinking water. So the Gemara answers, no, there's an eitzah. You don't have to build another set of partitions to be able to throw out the water. What would you do? The shadi luhu adafne desfina. The wastewater, don't throw it directly into the sea, but you spill it onto the walls of the boat, and then from the walls of the boat, it'll flow down into the sea. So you didn't pour it directly into the sea, which is a carmelis. You poured it onto the walls of the boat, and then from there, it's going to flow into the water, and that's okay. Frek the Gemara, really? Why is that okay? Even though you didn't directly throw the water, the wastewater, off the boat into the sea, but it's coming from your kayach. You're pouring it on the walls, and then from the walls it's flowing down into the sea. And it's also a problem when it comes with your kayach. Rashi quotes a mission for this, that you see that when it goes with its kayach, it's not allowed. Or Taisus quotes, okay, whatever. So the kayach is also a problem. And for the Gemara, not by a carmelis. Kayach be carmelis loy gazro. If you are transferring from a reshus hayachid, which is what the boat is, into the sea, which is a carmelis, but it's going through the walls of the boat, and it's not going directly into the carmelis, in such a case, Chachamim allowed you to do this, if you're not going directly. Not taimre, from where do I see that if it's not going directly, it's allowed? The Tanya, we learned in Abraisa, Svina, a boat, a metaltlin, loy mitoicha liyam, v'loy minayam l'toicha. You're not allowed to take anything from the boat into the water, or from the water into the boat, because the boat is a reshus hayachid, and the sea is a carmelis. Rabbi Yehuda says as follows: Amuka asara, if the interior of the boat is deep 10 tfachim, but ve'en gevaya asara, but from the exterior of the walls of the boat, it's not above sea level 10 tfachim. So then he says, metaltle mitoicha liyam. You are allowed to take things from inside the boat and throw it into the yam. But you're not allowed to lift up things from the yam into the boat. So he makes a distinction. Only in one direction you're allowed. You're allowed to take from the boat into the yam, not from the yam into the boat. So the Gemara asks immediately, Ma'ishna. So what's the pshat in Rabbi Yehuda's opinion? You're not allowed to take from the water up into the boat. You're taking from the water, which is a carmelis, into the boat, which is a reshus hayachid. Mitoicha liyam nami. So if so, the opposite should be the same thing. From the boat into the yam, it's the same thing. You're going from reshus hayachid to a carmelis. Why is that not allowed? Why is that allowed is the question. So what's the difference between the two directions? It's the same thing. Elo answers the Gemara. When the person is going from the boat into the Carmelis, and Rabbi Yehuda said it's allowed, you know why it's allowed? Elalav achuda. It's talking about that he's spilling the water on the rim, on the edge of the boat, and it's flowing down the walls into the water. That's the way it's allowed. That's what Rabbi Yehuda meant to say, which is exactly the point that we said before, that you're not throwing it directly into the yam, but you're putting it on the wall of the boat and it flows down. Shma mina, and I see from here, koichai bekarmelis legozru, that when you're taking from a Rishus Yachid into the Carmelis and it's not direct, it's only coming through your koyach and it's going first on the wall of the boat, they weren't geyser shma mina. This is a conclusive proof to this concept. So just to point out one thing, Rabbi Yehuda said that this is specifically true when the boat is, as Rabbi Yehuda was talking about, when the boat is not above the sea level, and from the outside walls of the boat is not above the sea level 10 tvachim. Why was he talking dafka about such a case? If the outside walls of the boat is above the sea level 10 tvachim, so then you'd be allowed to take from the water into the boat as well. Why? So Rashi and Tosfos both explain, because when you're taking from the water into the boat, you have to go above 10 tvachim, so everybody would agree that you're going above 10 tvachim, you're going through a makim petur into the boat. So you're going from a Carmelis, which is the water, into a makim petur above 10 tvachim, into the boat, which is a Rishus Yachid. So you're not going from a Carmelis to a Rishus Yachid, you're going from a makim petur into the Rishus Yachid. That's allowed. The Chachamim weren't guys on that, according to Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. It's this aspect of what Rabbi Yehuda said that the Chachamim in the Tanakama disagreed with. But the second aspect that the Gemara just explained, that you can put it when you're going from the boat into the water, that you can put it on the rim of the boat or on the walls of the boat and it flows down, and then it's okay. If it doesn't go directly, even the Tanakama agrees to that. That's what Tosfos explains the Gemara. So the Gemara, Amar Rav Huna, Hani Beitzasa de Mishon. You have these little boats of Mishon. Basically, as Rashi explains it here, these little boats of Mishon would be like today's canoes, where it's a boat, and you get into the boat, and then the bottom, the floor of the boat comes sort of to a point. It doesn't have a wide, when you go into a rowboat that has a wide floor in it, just like the opening of the boat. However wide the opening of the boat is, that's how wide the floor of the boat basically is. When you go and get into a canoe, it comes to a tip, and there's no dalet al dalet tfachim. You don't have 4x4 tfachim in the floor of the boat. It almost comes mamish to a tip. So this kind of a small boat that doesn't have that floor, so then what's going to be the halacha with this? Is it a Rishus Yachid or not? So it says, Gemara says, Ei metaltalim behem, you can't carry inside this boat, ela be'arba, only within 4 amas, or within, what's the gears over here on the side? Yeah, within 4 amas. You can't carry, it's not considered to be a Rishus Yachid. It's going to have the halacha like a Carmelis. And a Carmelis, the halacha is you're not allowed to carry 4 amas like in a Rishus Rabbim. If it doesn't have a floor that's 4x4 tfachim, you can't carry inside it. The Gemara explains now. This halacha, that this boat is considered to be like a Carmelis, was only said, Ela she'ein bepachas mishloisha arba. If when you get to the floor, and the area of the floor, 3 tfachim, the lowest 3 tfachim of the boat do not have a space of 4x4 tfachim. But if the bottom part of the boat, the lowest part of the boat, meaning the 3 tfachim, the bottom of the boat, have that space of 4x4 tfachim, then less lamba. Then it's not a problem. Then it has the minimum requirement. It comes to a tip, but the question is how extreme is the incline of the slope? How hard is the slope of the tip? Right. If it comes mamish to a tip like this, like this mamish. So then it doesn't have 4x4 tfachim in the low part of the slope when it comes down to the bottom of the floor. But if it does, if the lower part of 3 tfachim, it has a space of 4x4 tfachim, then it's not a problem. Because then that's the minimum requirement of a Rishus Yachid.
How come the whole Gemara yesterday with the tail had nothing about this?
The what? The
tail with the mound.
Oh.
It was Arba Amas, but
there was
no Gimel Tvachim.
Okay, it's a good question. I have to see again. I have to see if it's compared to this. Now the Gemara says another eitzah. If you have this boat that does not have that minimum requirement of 4x4 tvachim at the floor, What could you do? Vimalinu kani v'orvini leslamba. If you fill the bottom of the boat with sticks or with twigs or with other things to flatten it out a little bit and give you that space of 4 by 4 tfachim, so then it's not a problem. Even if the actual physical boat does not have that minimum requirement, but if you fill the floor and it has now that 4 by 4 tfachim, so then it'll be a Rosh Hashanah as well. Rav Nachman asked on this halacha, even if it's true that the bottom of the boat comes to a tip and it does not have at the bottom that minimum amount, but why wouldn't we say over here, good achis mechitzte? There's a cloud that's called good achis mechitzte. We had it a long time ago, that you have an imaginary wall. When you have a wall on the top, but that wall is not there in the bottom, we imagine as if the mechitza, the wall that exists on the top, extends downward where it is, straight downward. So over here, at the top of the boat, it has the rim, the boat has the walls that it's needed for the minimum size of 4 by 4 tfachim. Elamai, at the bottom, the boat comes to a tip and it does not have that minimum amount. So usually when we have a wall on the top, even if it doesn't physically extend down to the bottom, there's a klal we say that as long as on the top it has that amount, I imagine as if it's extending straight downward, and therefore the interior is within these full mechitzas that do extend straight down. So it has the minimum requirement of 4 by 4 tfachim. Why don't we apply this rule of good achis, which is, by the way, a halacha l'Moshe Missinai. It's a halacha that the Torah is mechadish. It's an imaginary thing. That once it's there in the top, I extend it downward. Why don't we apply it over here as well? Mi loitanya, that we'd not learn in the Braisa, and we had this before already. Rabbi Yosef by Yehuda Eimer, no, it's kana b'Reshus Harabim. You stick a small rod into the Reshus Harabim. Stick, basically, in the Reshus Harabim. But u'beroishai traskel. Then on top of the stick, which is 10 tfachim high, you place a basket. V'zarek v'nachal gabov. And you threw something from the Reshus Harabim, and it landed inside this basket. Chayiv, you'll be chayiv when it landed inside the basket. Now, this basket that's there on top does not have the walls of 10 tfachim that it needs. It's on top of a rod, which is inside the Reshus Harabim, and the basket itself, it has some walls, but it does not have the minimum requirement of 10 by 10 tfachim of walls. So why are you chayiv when it lands inside this basket? Alma, so we see from that case, Amrinon, good achis mechitzta, that I apply the concept of good achis mechitzta, meaning that because it has the height of 10 by 10 tfachim, and it has some walls in this basket, I consider it as if the walls of this basket extend straight down to the floor, as if it's all closed in, as if this area is closed in and that there is full walls over there, even though it's just positioned on this little rod and it does not have those physical walls there. So Hachanami over here as well, name a good achis mechitzta. Regarding this boat, even though the walls don't extend straight down, why don't I imagine it as if it does and apply this rule? Rav Yosef asked this question and he said, wait a minute, do we agree to this opinion? Who was speaking over here? He brought a braisa in the name of Rabbi Yosef bar Yehuda. Not everybody agrees to this. Did you not hear what Rav Yehuda Amarav said? And it's also brought in the name of Rab Chia, that Tutani Allah, it was learned regarding this case of the basket that's on top of a rod in the middle of the Reshus Harabim. The Chachamim Paitrin. The Chachamim say in that case you'd be potter. Because the basket on top of the rod does not have proper walls, there are no physical walls, Chachamim say you do not say good achis. I'm not going to imagine as if it has those walls surrounding it and you should be chayv. So Chachamim disagreed to this whole thing of good achis, it seems. Oh, very good. Amalei Abaya. Oh, so the Gemara right away says, Amalei Abaya. Abaya asks on Rav Yosef, and va'at loy tizbira. And you don't hold that even according to the Chachamim, we apply this concept of the imaginary walls? Vatanya, we learned clearly in another brayse, similar case, Amud b'Reshus Harabim. You have a post that's in the Reshus Harabim. Gevaya asara v'rachav dalet. It's tall 10 tfachim, and at the top of the post, it's wide 4 by 4 tfachim. But ve'ein be'ikrei dalet. It does not have at its base, all the way at the bottom, at its base, it does not have that width of 4 by 4 tfachim. Okay, so it's not exactly like the case we had before, where you have a thin rod, and then on top of it you have a basket. Over here, you have a post where at the bottom, let's say it's 3 tfachim wide, and then it gets wider as it goes up, and at the top platform of it, on the 10 tfachim, it has the width of 4 by 4 tfachim. So it's not exactly a thin rod, but it also doesn't have the full measurement needed at the bottom. So what did it say over there in this braisa? V'yesh bekotze shaloi gimel. At the narrow space at the bottom, where it does not have 4 by 4 tfachim, it's 3 tfachim off the ground. Okay, as Rashi explains, if within 3 tefachim to the ground, it would already have 4 by 4 tefachim, so that's lavud. As long as within 3 tefachim it has the minimum requirement, it doesn't have to be mamash all the way down to the ground. But the point is that even though in its narrow part at the bottom, at the base, it's above 3 tefachim off the ground where it does not have 4 by 4 tefachim. Nevertheless, v'zorak v'noch al gabav, if you throw from Rosh Hashanah and it lands on top of this post, chayiv, you'll be chayiv. What's the reason? Even though it does not have the space that it needs at the bottom. Alma, the reason is because I say, Amrinon, good aches mechitzta. At the top, it has that space that's required. So I just extend it downward as if, I imagine as if to whatever walls, whatever space it has on the top, goes straight down. And therefore, I see that everybody agrees to this concept of good aches mechitzta. Like you said, it's a halacha l'moshe misina. This is not something that they argued about. So the Gemara explains, there's a difference. Applying, there's a difference in how and when you apply good achas mechitzta. Not necessarily do you apply it in the most extreme situations. So the Gemara explains, midi area, is there a comparison? I'm sorry, I missed a few words. Hachanami is going back over here to our case with the boat. Yeah, going back to the case of the boat. Why don't you say the point of good achas mechitzta that there's imaginary walls that I extend downward? And for the Gemara, midi area, is there a connection over here? It's different. It's a different case. Hasam, in the case of the rod and the basket that's on top of the rod inside the Rosh Hashanah, havile mechitze shagedoyim boikimba. This is a kind of mechitze. True, there's a din of imaginary walls, but it doesn't go so far. This is a case where you have just a little thin rod in the middle, and on top of it you have this big basket that's 4 by 4 tefachim. So with your imaginary walls, animals, a goat could walk right under your imaginary walls. It could walk straight through. So therefore, to such an extent, the halacha l'moshe misina was not said, according to the Chachamim. Hacha, which is not the case over here when you have a post in the Rosh Hashanah, over here we're using this concept of imaginary walls where the animals cannot pass through. What's this post? This post wasn't just this little rod. It was, on the bottom, it wasn't as wide as it is on the top. At the bottom it was 3 tefachim wide, and at the top it's 4 tefachim wide. Gedayim can't walk by there. If they're going to walk by there, they're going to bump into this post. So when you're creating these imaginary walls, if these Gedayim try to walk in the space where your imaginary walls are, they're not going to be able to walk through there. There, the Torah said that we consider what the measurement that's on top to extend down to the bottom. But when the Gedayim can walk through there, then we don't say that.
Good achas is used many times, like in Sukkah, for example, we use good achas, and Gedayim can go through.
Not so. So maybe it's according to Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda. Okay, we'll have to see when we get there. But here we're going according to the opinion of the Chachamim. Could be it's part of that's in the Machlokes, yeah. So Amalei Ravacha Berei de Ravacha Ravashi. So now he said according to Ravashi. So now let's see how does this work by a boat? Gabe Sfina Nami. So by a boat as well. So your question was we should apply good achas by a boat, that the top walls of the boat should extend straight down, even though at the bottom of the boat it comes to a tip. Why don't we extend the walls of the boat straight down? So he says by the boat as well, ha'ike b'kiyas doge. There are the fish that can go in that space where you want to extend your walls down. The boat comes to a tip and the fish are swimming there, and you want to extend your walls straight down as if it's a rowboat. So the same thing we're saying about the goats walking through, the fish can swim through. Amalei, so you answer him, b'kiyas dogim lo yishmei b'kiyah. The place where the fish go through, that's not considered to be that they're penetrating through these walls. That we don't care about. Why not? What's the difference between goats or fish? So the Gemara says, Minot Heimra. From where do I know this? The boy, Minei, Rab Tavla made Ravin. Rab Tavla asked the question from Ravin as follows. What's if you have walls that are basically suspended in the air? You have, let's say in a demolition site, where you have walls that they began demolishing a building, and at the bottom, the walls are not anymore connected to the ground, but it's still connected to the top part of the building. So the wall is extended from above to below, but it's not connected to the bottom. So such a kind of wall, which is tluya, it's sort of suspended, or it's hanging, it's still connected at the top and not at the bottom. In a churba, in a place where it's ruins, such a kind of a wall qualify as a wall? And he said to him, a wall that's not connected at the bottom, it's hanging and it's only connected at the top, does not qualify for a wall for a Shusay Yachid. Elo b'mayim. The only place where such a wall is used is regarding water. And Rashi here brings the Gemara in Eruvin that in those times they had to draw water on Shabbos from outside. So they were living inside their houses or inside their buildings, whatever it was. And then outside they had a stream of water that was passing through, and you wanted to draw water. You want to go out on your porch and be able to roll down a bucket and to be able to draw water from the stream that's going outside your house. But the problem is you can't bring from the stream, which is a carmelis, into your house. Or even from the stream that might, carmelis into your house. So what did they say? You create these partitions, and you place these partitions above the water, and as long as you lower down your bucket into these partitions, you're allowed to take from the stream of water.
Like a well,
Yes, sort of. You create this makeshift well, and you're able to go inside, similar to what we learned before with the people that are on the boat. Exactly. So the question is, okay, you create these imaginary partitions above that water, but the problem is the partitions are not going all the way down to the bottom of the water. The water is still flowing, and the fish are still swimming over there, and this is a place where the fish are biking way. The fish penetrate your imaginary walls that you placed over there. And the Chachamim allowed it. The Mayim kalu shekil Chachamim. Regarding water, Chachamim had this leniency that the fact that the fish are going through don't bother them. Kil Chachamim b'Mayim. So by this case that I just mentioned, where you create these partitions to be able to draw water from there, why did they allow it? The fish are passing through over there. Elo shmami no, bekiyas dogim lo yishma bekiya. But God be this, the Chachamim will makel that the fish passing by doesn't matter, and because you have those imaginary walls, I consider it as if it's extended all the way down to the bottom, even though the fish are passing through. Yeah, so Chachamim were makel. So we're talking here about a carmelis, right? So regarding a carmelis, where the whole thing is Issim D'Rabbanan, in this case over here it's a carmelis, and the case we were talking about before, the Beit Sasa, the Mishon, these boats that are in the water, which is a carmelis. Over here Chachamim said you could use good asik or good achis mechitzta, even though the fish are going through. So l'chayre it comes out though. So this question that Rav Nachman asked, v'leim a good achis mechitzta, stands. The Gemara doesn't resolve that question. The Gemara says, Anachanami, we could apply good achis, that you extend the walls downward, even in a boat that comes down to a tip, you could extend the walls down straight as if there's walls there. Yeah. Okay, the next thing in the Mishnah we learned was carrying from one boat to another boat. So the Mishnah said that when you have two boats, the boats were tied one to another, then you're allowed to carry from one boat to another boat. But if there were two boats near each other, but they're not tied together, then you're not allowed to carry from one boat to another. So the Gemara Pshita, the first statement in the Mishnah, when you have two boats that are tied together, and they're both Rosh Hashanah, they're like, it's basically like two rooms in a house. Is there a chiddush to say that I could carry from two rooms in a house? Of course not. So the same thing over here. Pshita, obviously, I can carry from one boat to another boat. So Rava answers, no, the chiddush over here is we're talking about a case where you have two large ships, and then in between there's this little boat or a little raft. Like a lot of times these big ships have a little raft that you use. So he's not carrying from one boat to another boat. If that would be the case, there'd be no chiddush. But he's carrying from a boat to a little raft into another boat. So in such a case, here's the chiddush to say that you're allowed to carry even through this little boat in between, which is not connected, which is not tied together. That's the way Rava teaches the Mishnah. Amalei Rav Safra. So Rav Safra commented on this and said, Moshe Shapika Amrit. Is Moshe saying the right pshat here in the Mishnah? So Rashi explains what this means. Moshe, look in Rashi, Kalaima Rabbeinu B'dairei K'Moshe B'dairei. That he referred to Rava with the name Moshe because he was the leader of the generation, so he's like the Moshe Rabbeinu of the generation. This is where you see in the Lashon of the Gemara, the concept that's brought in the Lashon of the Zayar, is Pashtusa the Moshe B'chol Dara. This is a Lashon that's brought in the Gemara a few times. Moshe Shapik Hamret. That this is so he's asking a question. He was wondering, Moshe Shapik Hamret, is this really the pshat of the Mishnah? Metaltula mizu lezu tnan. In the Mishnah it said that you can carry when the two boats are tied together, you can take directly from one boat to another. It wasn't talking about where a person's carrying through a little raft in between. So Rav Safra explains the pshat over here is chiddush over here is when these boats are not owned by the same person. Two different people own these boats, and then you need an eruvi chatzeres. It's not like two rooms in a house. It's like two different courtyards, or in the same courtyard when you have two people that own the two different houses. So over here, two different owners of the boat, and the chiddush is that you can make an eruvi chatzeres in this case. Maybe you would think Chachamim did not make a takana of eruvi chatzeres for two boats. So over here, that's a chiddush that the Eruv Chatzeris is effective for these two boats that are tied together. Okay, the Tanya, as we learned in Abrais, Sfinais, Kshurais, Zubezu, boats that are tied one to another. Ma'arvin, you make an Eruv Chatzeris, or Metaltlim Izuluzu, and you can carry from one boat to another boat. Nifsaku, if the knot of the what they were tied together was cut, so then Nesru. Now it's Asr. Now you're not allowed to carry from one boat to another boat. Chazru v'nikshru, if it was retied on Shabbos, and the Gemara says, Bein Shegigim, Bein Mezidim, Bein Anusim, Bein Mutan, whether it was tied b'Shegig, whether b'Mezid, or b'Ainis, or b'Tois, in any case that it was b'Payel, the knot appears again on Shabbos. Chazru leheteiram harishain. It returns to the first heter, which is that the Eruv Chatzeris works to carry from one boat to another boat. Then the Braisa says, V'chein machtzales haprusais le Rishus Harabim, or bir Rishus Harabim, is that what's the gears over there on the side? Or V'chein machtzales haprusais, the same as also when you have basically machtzales mats, or sort of tents that are spread out inside a Rishus Harabim. So the tents create a Rishus Yachid, and you have one tent, another tent, side by side. So the same halacha applies there. Ma'arvin and metaltlim izuluzu. You can make an Erev Chatzeris and carry from one tent to another tent. But niglulu, what's if one mat was rolled up? So now there's a separation between one tent and another. So nesru, so you can't carry. There's a break of Rishus Harabim in between. You can't carry from one to another. Chazru v'nifreshu, if somehow this tent that was rolled up is spread out again on Shabbos, even though you're not allowed to spread it out again on Shabbos, but it was spread out again on Shabbos, Bein Shegigim, whether b'Shegig, Bein Mezidim, Bein Anusim, Bein Mutan, Chazru l'Teira Nerisha, and it comes back to its first heter. And the Braisa explains, Shekol mechitza shenasa b'Shabbos, any mechitza, any partition that you create on Shabbos, Bein b'Shegig, Bein b'Mezid, whether it was done b'Shegig, or even if it was done b'Isser, it was done b'Mezid, Shema mechitza. It has, Chachamim say it has the halacha mechitza. The fact is the mechitza is there, and therefore you're allowed to carry from one tent to another if that mechitza was placed there even on Shabbos. Same thing applies to the boats. You're not allowed to make a knot in Shabbos to tie the two boats together. But if it was made on Shabbos, even b'Mezid, you're allowed to carry from one boat to another if you have an Eruv Chatzeris. Fragt the Gemara, Eini, is this true? Rav Nachman said that regarding this Braisa we just learned, Lo Shano, in a case where your oihel, your tent, your mechitza, you put up on Shabbos itself, and it says that it's allowed to be used. Lo Shano, that's only said, Ela Lizraik, only to throw into it, meaning only l'chumra do we consider that partition to be a partition. Meaning if a person would be throwing from a Rishus Harabim inside this tent area that you created on Shabbos, so l'chumra we say that you just threw from Rishus Harabim into a Rishus Yachid and it's not allowed. Aval l'taltel, to use a partition that you created on Shabbos, l'kula, that you should be allowed to carry inside that area more than 4 ames, also, it's not allowed. So Rav Nachman is telling us that you can't use a partition made on Shabbos. We're going to use it l'chumra, to be machmer, that it should be considered a Rishus Yachid, but not l'kula. So how are we saying over here regarding the boats that if it got untied and then it was tied again on Shabbos, that you use it even l'kula to carry from one boat to another? So the Gemara answers, Ki itmer de Rav Nachman amezer itmer. Rav Nachman, when he made this distinction that you only use a partition that was made on Shabbos, l'chumra, that's if it was made b'mezid. If you made this, if you machal Shabbos b'mezid, then Chachamim said a gzeira that we only use that partition l'chumra and not l'kula. But if it was made b'shegig or b'oinis or by mistake, or if there's another way not b'mezid, then the partition or the knot regarding the boats could be used even l'kula, that you can carry from one boat to another. Amar Shmuel, now Shmuel said regarding these two boats that are tied together, va'afila kshura is b'chut asarbel. Even if these two boats are tied with a small little thread from a cloak, a very small thread that's tying these two boats together, still you can carry from one boat to another. So the Gemara wants to understand what was the chiddush of Shmuel. Hey chidami, what is Shmuel saying here? Either yachala amidan, if this little thread is strong enough that it could hold the boats in place tied together, so then pshita. So obviously, why it's a knot that you tie and the boats are together. Either en yachala amidan, if this little thread is not strong enough to hold the boats together, so then why is it effective to tie the boats together? It's not holding it together. What's Shmuel saying here? So Mimanav Shach, what he's saying doesn't make sense. And for the Gemara, la'olam the yachala midan. Really, Shmuel is only saying that you could use a little thread to tie boats in a case where it could hold it together. And really, Legabi Hilchas Shabbos, there was no chiddush in what Shmuel said. But the chiddush of Shmuel was contrasting this Mishnah here, tying two boats together. In this Mishnah, he was contrasting to another case, tying boats, b'negeh to Hilchas Tumah. That was the chiddush here. Shmuel is coming to exclude of something else that he himself said regarding Tumah. We learned in another Mishnah, Koshra bedavar hamamida mevi Tumah. If you have a boat and you tie the boat with a rope to something that's going to bring Tumah. So let's say you have a house where there's a dead body inside the house, and that makes it an oil, and everything inside that house is tummy. And now you have a rope that's tied to that house. The rope extends into the house, and you tie your boat to the walls of this house. So now the boat is connected to this house. So whatever tumah there is inside the house, so this rope becomes tameh from the house, from the oil of the house, and now it connects to the boat, and the boat becomes tameh as well, right? So if it's kosher bedavar amamida, if you're tying the boat with something that could hold the boat there, so then maybe lo tumah. It brings a tumah. Bedavar she'ei mamida, if it's something that cannot hold the boat there, ei maybe lo tumah. So then this connection, this rope that you're tying it, does not bring the tumah. Now for Shmuel says regarding that Mishnah, regarding this din of tumah, the Mishnah in Ahalais, v'hu shekshura b'shalsheles shel barzel. There it's specifically talking about a metal and iron rope that you're tying the boat to the house. Again, with an iron rope. That's when it says that it becomes tameh. Now, before we learn the Gemara inside, let me explain two details to understand this Gemara. Number one, what Shmuel was talking about is you want to make the people, Adam v'kelim, people, let's say, that are inside the boat tameh. That's the question. Will the people inside the boat become tameh? Now, what's the halacha regarding a person? From a rishon l'tumah, he does not become a sheni l'tumah. If you remember, we learned this in the end of the first Perek of Shabbos. A person himself does not become sheni l'tumah. Foods could become sheni l'tumah. A person or kalim do not become a sheni l'tumah. So now think about it. You have this oil of tumah. So the oil of tumah is where the tumah's mace is. What level of tumah is that? Avi avaysa tumah. The mace itself is avi avaysa tumah. Then you have the rope that was makabel tumah from there. What's the rope? An ava tumah. No, from avi avaysa you go to av. The rope is an ava tumah. Then the rope is touching the boat becomes a rishon l'tumah. The person inside the boat would only become a sheni l'tumah. So the person wouldn't become tameh. So therefore Shmuel says we're talking about a metal rope. Metal has a special chumrah. There's a pasuk that says, compares a cherev, which is metal, iron, to a human being, to the dead body itself. Cherev and the mace. Iron, when it receives tumah from a source of tumah, it maintains the same level of tumah than like the source that it received the tumah from. So if this metal rope got the tumah of aviyah vaysa tumah, the metal rope itself is aviyah vaysa tumah. So therefore now this metal rope is aviyah vaysa tumah. It touches the boat is an ava tumah. Now the person inside the boat will become a rishon l'tumah. That's what he's saying here.
The house itself, the whole of the house becomes aviyah vaysa,
yeah.
Or only the dead body?
Well, the dead body is aviyah vaysa. Anything inside it becomes an ava tumah. Only an ava tumah.
So where's this barzel's on the dead body?
It's inside. It's below the roof of this house, of this oil. But because it's metal, it does become an aviyah vaysa tumah like the dead body itself. That's the chiddush of metal. Metal maintains the same level of tumah like the source that it received the tumah from. So therefore Shmuel says, let's see it inside. B'shalshel shel barzel. Over here in this Mishnah, it's talking about a rope which is made from iron. Le'inyin tumah. Because le'inyin tumah dichsev, by tumah it says b'chalal cherev. Chalal is a dead body, and then it says in the pasuk cherev. We compare the two. Cherev harehu kechalal. A sword or anything else that's metal, iron, like the cherev, maintains the same level of tumah like the dead body itself. So over there, it's important, it's relevant to say that it's an iron the rope that's connecting the boat to the tumah to make the person inside the boat tameh. Aval in Shabbos, but when it comes to Shabbos, you don't need iron afka. Kivin the yachal hamida, anything that's able to connect the two boats, afilu b'chuta sarvel, even if it's just a thread from a cloak, as long as it can hold it together, it will be connected. You can carry from one boat to another boat.